Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Made it to the end of another work week, and we've got a little bit of Seahawks news. And relatively speaking, it may seem like a bit of a footnote, but I'm not ruling out this turning into something a little bit bigger. And I gotta say, either way, I like it. And this has me a little bit encouraged. Now, I'm not going to act like this is some franchise altering move that the Seahawks have made today, but I like the concept. So, a little bit ago, we waived a tight end, Jake Houseman. I think we actually assigned him not too long ago, so he was just with us for a cup of coffee. And we used the available roster spot to bring in Joel Dublanko. So, we have we seem to be aware of the fact that we have a little bit of a depth issue at linebacker right now. We don't have a whole lot going on behind Brooks and Barton, and we're trying to figure out a way to deal with that because we know that BBK and Radigan are not going to be part of the team's immediate future because of injury. So they go out and pick up an undrafted rookie, Joel Dublanko. I think he spent a little bit of time with the Saints this offseason, and then they let him go, and now he finds his way here. And don't get me wrong, the fact that he went undrafted and the fact that he did get a shot with the Saints that ended with them letting him go before preseason started does tell you that there isn't exactly a big chance that he's going to become anything in the NFL. But regardless, there is a chance. There always is. And as far as chances go, I think this one is pretty good. So, Dublanko was the leading tackler on the Cincinnati Bearcats last year. And that Cincinnati Bearcats defense, he was one of the big contributors along with, our very own Kobe Bryant, but also Sauce Gardner, Carl Cook, Darian Beavers. I think they had a defensive tackle that got drafted as well in like the sixth round. There's probably one or two other notable. Majai Sanders, the pass rusher who went to the Cardinals. There was a lot going on that Cincinnati defense, and Joel Dublanko was a key part of it, helping both their run defense and their pass rush pretty significantly. So there's definitely something here. Now, on the one hand, you say, well, he's playing with so many studs in Cincinnati, that makes it easier for him. But also the fact that he's playing with those studs and still making a notable impact on games, despite playing with so many guys who ended up going drafted, and in some cases drafted very high, it means that he can play. If you take a look at what he actually did over his 4 years in college, or excuse me, 5 years, barely played the first year, but regardless, he was good in the previous 3 years, but 2021 is, of course, the year when he really put his face on the map. He played in 14 games. He had 113 total tackles, 11 and a half for loss, 5 sacks, so you can see him contributing as a pass rusher as well. Had an interception, forced some fumbles the last 3 years in college. He did some big things in his Cincinnati career, particularly in his final season. So you look at his size, 6'3", 235 pounds, and it's believable that he can play on the inside in a 3-4 defense. Usually, I would say that interior linebackers in a 3-4 defense are going to be a little bit bigger, but I don't think that's something that's going to prevent him from becoming whatever it is he's going to become. So Joel Dublanko, you look at him and you go, with the production this guy had, it's kind of interesting that he didn't get drafted. Now, stuff like this happens all the time in college football. A guy is productive, a guy puts up numbers, a guy plays well, but for whatever reason, they don't view him as a real NFL prospect. And most of the time, the experts get it right, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they look at a guy who is really productive like this, they pass him over, and then he ends up being productive in the pros as well, and those experts kind of get egg on their face. And if you look at how effective he was in 2021, you can kind of believe that, hey, maybe there's something here. This guy contributed in multiple areas. This guy was one of the top tacklers in the nation, and he played on a great defense. And I know it was great because of guys like Sauce Gardner more than Joel Dublanko, but still, he had a significant impact on the way that defense played. And regardless of whether or not this ends up meaning anything, I just want to say I like this so much better than turning to a KJ Wright for help at interior linebacker, because clearly we need it. You look at our inside linebacker situation, knowing that we're probably going to run a decent chunk of 3-4, if not mostly 3-4, and you go that behind our starters, we don't really have anything to be even slightly excited about right now. You get down to the guys like Lakiem Williams and Vi Jones and the Oregon State guy whose name escapes me. It's not great. Avery Roberts. Yeah, that's his name. Avery Roberts. You've got some guys with a little bit of appeal, but there isn't a whole lot to feel comfortable with. Ben Burkervin, as much as he's obviously not going to be a great NFL player, had experience with this team, had experience with Carroll, and there was something there. With these guys, not so much. So the fact that we are looking at that and going, hey, let's try to let's buy another lottery ticket. And, you know, calling them a lottery ticket might be a little more exaggerated than it needs to be, but let's go get somebody young, somebody with very few miles on their body, at least relatively speaking. Let's get somebody who has upside, somebody who might surprise you. That is so much better to me in a year like this than going with, hey, let's just go get KJ Wright and run him out there for another year, and if he gets beat up, then, well, you know, we're going to have to watch the final year of KJ Wright be something of an embarrassment, and that's not fun for anybody, but whatever, let's just do it. You know, it'll make the fans happy for a little while. It'll make some fans feel all nostalgic. Like, no, Star Wars and Jurassic Park have shown us in the last few years that nostalgia is bad. Nostalgia is evil. I'm kidding, but regardless, if you are going to search for some linebacker help, this is the kind of stuff that I much prefer to digging around in your past, to digging around in the veteran pile, digging around with players that just don't have any upside. KJ Wright last year showed that he couldn't really be a full-time player anymore, that he couldn't really cover anymore. I don't think the Raiders had him cover very much at all, and showed that at this point in his career, there's only so much he can do. He's not going to get better at this point. He's getting older. How many players get better when they cross over 30 and continue to age beyond that? It doesn't happen very often. So, of the two approaches you can take, I like this one a lot more, and I'm happy. You look at Joel Dublanko and you feel like there is something good there. This is not somebody who was anonymous in college. This is not somebody who never did anything good on a football field and then wowed everybody at the combine or anything like that. No, this was a guy who was productive in college on a great defense. And if something happens here, then great. You've got an extremely cheap, extremely young player on your team for the next couple years when there's clearly room for him in the long-term plans. Cody Barton and BBK are both free agents after this season, I believe. They may both be gone. And there isn't a whole lot behind them that you can point to and say, yeah, that guy's the next man up for sure. So Joel Dublanko is now a Seahawk. I like the approach. I like the signing. It makes sense to me. I'm not saying that anything is going to come of this. I'm not saying that Dublanko is going to be our starter and have 120 tackles this year. That's pretty unlikely. I'm not even saying he's going to start. But looking for linebacker depth behind Brooks and Barton, this is, in my opinion, the right way to go about it. All right, see you guys later. I'm going to be on Twitch tonight during the Mariners game. I will be doing a stream with the Hawks Nest tonight around 6, I believe. We might bump it to 7, but I believe we're going to do it at 6. Keep an eye out. See you guys then. Go Hawks.